hope you're ready for this.
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn. Hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
So hello and welcome to the 66th episode of The Nexus Trolls, a podcast all about Heroes of the Storm, part of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. I'm your host, Daz, and with me as always is Mystic. How's it going, Mystic? How was it last week without me? Much better place, I imagine?
Oh, it was quite interesting having to do a lot of the hosting just between me and LiQuid. So
I thought it was interesting getting my heroes news from this podcast as opposed to being the one giving the news. Since I took last week off, I didn't play any Heroes of the Storm about until a couple days ago when I came back from vacation. So it was definitely an odd week for me. But we've got a special guest on the show today, Russell, also known as Roz or Rozai in game. Roz, thanks for coming on the show and subbing in for LiQuiud, who is sick at home with, well, not sick, sorry, his kids and wife are sick, so he's Dr. Dad today instead of Mr. Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I just finished having the plague, so it's it's good to take his place.
Maybe you electronically transmitted it to LiQuid's family somehow. So, Roz, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Let everyone know who you are and why you're here.
Sure. I'm one of the writers for the Trolls.gg network. I've been on the show before talking about the Music of the Storm segments. I've got a guide on the website for Lucio as well. And I'm going to be starting writing some HGC-related articles starting here within the next week. So.
And I'm excited to read some of those too. I've been notoriously absent on watching HGC this year, so it's good to be able to follow up on some of that from the articles you're going to be writing, as well as some of the other writers on our site as well. So yeah, it's always good to hear from you guys. We've got a lot. No, we don't. We don't have a ton to talk about. We got a little bit to talk about on the show this week. I feel like that's the default thing to say, is like we've got a lot to talk about. But we're going to be talking about Maiev because she just came out fresh on the live server this week, just yesterday, along with the Genji and Hanzo nerfs that came along with that. We're going to talk about a little bit of news, and Mystic's going to round out the show with his Shakedown. But before we do all of that, we're going to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/trollsgg, and specifically our new patron, San, who thanks for subbing for the show on Patreon. It's much appreciated. If you're looking for a way to support the show, you guys can always do so over there. And San is also our our troll of the week this week as well. And San also is going to be a writer for us soon too. He's just working on his first article, so we're looking forward to seeing what he has up his sleeve as well. So with that, let's get into the news.
Someday, this will make a great story.
So, not a huge news week, but there are a few notable items. First off, just a few days ago, Heroes of the Dorm casters were announced. The link for that is in the show notes, but we've got Inverum, The Source, and our friend Halloran, not to mention a special guest at Dunk Train 2. And a little side special note, this is one reason that we have to take Halloran off the casting roster for our tournament in a couple weeks' time, which is Creators of the Storm, the tournament that we're doing with a whole bunch of content creators throughout the Nexus. Halloran was going to cast the semis and the finals, but we're just solidifying up who his replacement is going to be, because he's going to be doing Heroes of the Dorm, which should be pretty exciting. Do you guys like this caster lineup? I mean, Halloran's amazing. I've seen a lot of his stuff. I haven't caught as much from Inverum and The Source, though.
Yeah, I love them both. I've seen a few of both Inverum and The Source, and I always love me some Halloran and Dunk Train, so
yeah, and
pretty good to cast.
Dunk Train seems to be everywhere too. Everywhere you look, there's like a special guest appearance from Dunk Train. So
yeah.
I mean, he's one of the great personalities in the scene, so it's great to see him wherever we can. So, and his beard too. That beard, there's got to be a couple like nests in there now. I think that thing's getting pretty long, and I'm very impressed and wish I could grow a beard just like him.
It's looking bigger and bigger now because he's been doing his treadmill streams. So now the beard is bigger by comparison.
Yes, awesome. Well, I can't wait to see some Heroes of the Dorm. That's going to be starting up very shortly, so we're going to be looking forward to seeing some competitive collegiate Heroes of the Dorm stuff. Rank season, the whole fiasco around Christmas time, Blizzard's come out and done an official apology and said, hey, we're going to give you guys a free legendary loot chest because we screwed up. I think last time you were on the show, Roz, was right around when this debacle was happening. And you had some interesting times in your seeding games, and along with everybody else too. So it's nice that if you've played a Hero League game at all this season up until January 1st, if you played one game, you will be awarded a legendary loot chest. So good on Blizzard for, doing something. I'm sure there's people probably screaming that that's not enough. It shouldn't happen in the first place. But hey, at least they're, listening to feedback and giving something back as a compensation to this. Mystic, do you think this is enough, or do you think they should have done something more here?
I mean, they tested out a new system, and it didn't work out. I mean, that's kind of Blizzard's fault for not doing enough research, but it happens, right? Not everything usually goes super smooth the first time it launches. So I honestly think just getting a legendary chest is pretty good. I mean, I didn't actually expect anything, and it's good of Blizzard that they offered something, so I'm happy.
What do you think, Roz? I mean, do you think they handled this whole situation correctly? I mean, people make mistakes, right? And that's fine. But then how you handle those mistakes is the mark of, if you're a good company or whatever, good to your player base in this case. Do you think they handled this well, or the best they could?
I mean, it was a tough situation to be in. You've been working on this awesome product that everybody's hyped about for months, and then it just catastrophically does not work. But I mean, one sign of wisdom, I think, is accepting failure, and they were totally willing to completely shut off the system, even though that the rank system, the personal adjustment system itself was not causing the problems. They knew that the association with the other bugs, they needed to solve that problem. So they were totally, fine with just stepping back and getting rid of all the problems and then coming back in with a clean slate. And I think that's it takes a lot, of confidence to do something like that when you're a company like that where, public opinion can sway, your whether you sink or swim, so
yeah,
I think it's pretty good.
I know around when it was all happening too, a lot of employees were getting almost personally attacked on Twitter because of this. And I saw some Blizzard employees be like, hey, listen, this stuff happens, stop being mean people to us, please. We're doing the best we can. You gotta understand the situation or whatever. And I think there's a few, small few from the community that overreacted to the situation and went the other way and made it a really bad PR situation. But
yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing what kind of things can get out of the bug test stage of development, and things that no one would imagine just make its way onto live, and this was one of those cases.
Just like Maiev being OP, right? Which we're going to actually that's probably a very good segue, because Maiev is now live along with Balance Patch. We're first going to talk a bit about the Balance Patch before talk a bit more about Maiev. But I mean, right now, if you look at Hot Slogs, she's got a hefty win rate up in the, I think, 65% range. It's not a huge sample size, but that's large enough that I think it's fairly safe to say that she's OP. I was talking to Bacon from the Gankbush squad yesterday or 2 days ago, being like, oh, I don't think she's going to be that strong, this and that. And I'm really glad I wasn't on the podcast last week, because I probably would have said, no, Maiev, she's lacking in certain things, but you know what? Color me wrong here, because I definitely was. Yeah, she's coming with a vengeance here. Yeah, so I can move over Genji and Hanzo. I think we've got a new first ban until she gets nerfed, at least. Are you guys agreeing with the idea that Maev's OP, or do you think that she's a little bit strong here, or that anything needs to be done to her?
I think she's super strong just because it's a numbers issue. Her stats are pretty high, and that's what makes her OP. As a whole, if her numbers were lower, I would agree with Bacon that, she shouldn't be that strong, actually. It's just...
Would you consider her a high skill cap hero, maybe? Because it seems like she can be difficult to pull off a lot of combos, but if you get good at her, she does seem like that kind of character that you could just be oppressive to the other team if you're good with her.
Personally, I would say she's medium to high, because like there's obviously skill that you can use. You're a fan of knives, right? And now for right now it hits like a truck. It doesn't matter if you really get the resets. If you get the resets, you like kill their entire team. If you don't get the resets, it still hits pretty hard as a spell. The other things, it's okay, and I mean there's always the blink timings that you can use and containment disc, but Cage of Wardens is a fire and forget spell.
Yeah, what do you think, Roz? Are you in the camp that she's OP, hard to play, easy to play? What do you think?
I mean, I think people are just going to have to figure out, at least in this first week, of how to play around the Warden's Cage. You know, and we'll get there. But it is, you know, just like Mystic said, it's a fire and forget. It doesn't necessarily take a whole lot of thought to play it, at least on the surface, it doesn't seem. I think what makes her strong is, you know, that passive armor makes her effective HP really, really high. And she already has a high base HP. I was reading the Math of the Storm article today, and it was saying that her effective HP is, you know, comparable to Sonya and Malthael, and is even higher. Now she doesn't have like self-sustained talents, so that's kind of balanced out a little bit. But you know, if you put her in a good team, you know, healing is going to be that much more effective on her. But yeah, like Mystic was saying, the fan of knives seems maybe a little overtuned, especially when you get the cooldown resets. And it seems like a lot of people are going for the physical damage build on the fan of knives. And when you get the other talents that, you know, increase the physical damage you do based on your armor and all this stuff, it starts to compound a little bit. So just little tweaks, I think, will bring her in line.
So what do you guys think here? Because usually when you see a new hero come out, I mean, we saw it with Blaze and a couple of the more recent heroes, they might have been released with like a lower win rate, but it slowly crept up as people got to learn how to play the character. In this case, especially Roz, what you're kind of saying here is like maybe people have to learn to play around her a little bit more. So, you know, assuming that the nurse are maybe coming a week from now, but over the next few days, do you think her win rate might come down a little bit as people understand how to play against her, or do you think it might even go up as people get better at playing her? Because I mean, those are counterbalancing forces, right? I wonder which one's going to take over here.
I mean, I think it'll even out, maybe go down a little bit, because one of the things, and you and I were playing some Maiev together yesterday, and you know, I realized, oh, the umbral bind doesn't work when they step out of vision, and you know, people learn to play around that. You know, so if you get the umbral bind on you, just walking through to a vent or something like that, and you know, there's all kinds of things that the defensive team will learn over time. I think the people who are already mechanically good in life are already really good, and I don't know necessarily, you know, that you know, the average will improve as much as people will learn to counter her.
Oh god, I was having problems playing her. Does that mean I'm not mechanically good in life then? Well, you know what? We've already started talking about Maiev, so let's continue. I was going to talk about the patch notes first, but we can just save those to the end. So just to get everyone on the same playing field, unless in case anyone hasn't had a chance to play Maiev yet, I'm just going to quickly go over her kit here, and we're going to go over a talent tree, maybe talk about some of the talents along the way, because some of them do seem awfully strong, and I'd like to get your guys' opinions on them as well. So just quickly, her kit, Vault of the Wardens, is her trait. She can activate it, her D, to leap into the air, becoming immune to all hostile effects for 0.75 seconds. Unlike a Genji or a Hanzo leap, though, this doesn't change your movement speed. So you actually move at walking speed while you're jumping. So you can't jump over anything. You can't jump over terrain, but you can jump over heroes. But the only problem is you might not be able to get past the hero. And if you're mid jump, it'll just put you on the side of the hero, which you're, you know, the closest to. It also gives her a passive of 10 armor, which we alluded to before. It was actually 15 armor on the PTR. I guess they kind of foresaw the OP-ness of Maiev, so they reduced that down to 10 as of the live patch. And as Roz was saying too, healing, this makes healing a lot more effective on her, just like Garrosh. Any other characters that have armor, if you take 1,000 damage and then you heal up for you know like what would effectively be 1,000 back, like it actually takes 1,100 damage to get you down that 1,000, so that healing is 10% more effective as well. Fan of Knives is her Q. It's on a 4-second cooldown. You deal 180 damage to enemies in a crescent area, a very unique shaped skill shot, which can be kind of difficult to land. It's got a fairly decent range on it, though, so you can hit enemy heroes that are pretty far away. If you hit at least 2 enemy heroes with Fan of Knives, it reduces its cooldown to half a second and refunds its mana cost, making it extremely spammable. I've never had any mana issues with Maiev, so I don't know how important the refunding of the mana cost is, but still a nice little thing for that. Umbral Bind is her W. It's on a 12-second cooldown. Maev's next basic attack will cleave in about the shape of actually the Fan of Knives and applies tether to the enemy hero's hit for 2.5 seconds. If the tethered enemy hero moves too far away from Maiev, they're pulled towards her, dealing damage and breaking the tether, so then they can get away. The Umbral Bind tether pullback distance is capped at, I think it's either 4.5 or 5.5, whatever the distance of the max distance of the tether is. Umbral Bind, like pressing W, actually resets her auto attack animation too, so you can get an extra auto attack in there if you press your W. And then also, well, actually, that's about it. I didn't want to throw all the notes there. So that's about it for Umbral Bind. A very important ability for kind of keeping her in line with that like anti-movement or mobility hero. Spirit of Vengeance is her movement ability, but also provides some poke. It's on a 10-second cooldown. Maiev sends a shadow outward that will return to its cast location after a couple seconds, dealing 100 damage to enemies along both paths. It deals 100% more damage to heroes, and you can reactivate it to blink to the shadow's location. Reminds me a little bit of Haunting Wave, except it stays out a little bit longer, which is kind of a cool ability because you can move while the shadow is out, which is great. You're not stationary like a Leoric per se when you're using your spooky walk, whatever it's called. And this is also a great ability because you can combo it with your tether too, so it's a good way to get out of that tether range, so you can pull those heroes back there, being kind of squirrely about getting out of your tether range. Okay, 2 ultimates, Containment Disc and Warden's Cage. Containment Disc is on a 65-second cooldown. You throw a glaive in a target direction. If the enemy hero is hit, the spell can be reactivated to remove their vision and put them in stasis, very much like a Nubarak Cocoon for 4 seconds. Containment Disc also automatically activates 6 seconds after hitting a hero, so you don't have to reactivate it, or you can die and it'll still go off. Then Warden's Cage is on an 80-second cooldown. Summon 8 Warden avatars as a cage in a circle around Maiev. After 1.5 seconds, enemy heroes that come in contact with the avatars consume it and are knocked to the center of the cage. The Warden avatars last 7 seconds, and if someone comes in from the outside, they'll actually get pulled into the center as well. Again, trying to keep that zone of control and pull everyone in, which Maiev likes because her Fan of Knives get reset once she hits multiple heroes. Okay, so before we get into the talent tree, let's look at these ultimates. I want to see what you guys' thoughts are on them. Originally, I thought Warden's Cage was going to be a horrible talent, and I liked Containment Disc just like a Nubarak's Cocoon, but can't get into, like, once you land it is a skill shot, I guess, but you've got the flexibility that it can't be broken early with a Li Ming laser or tracer rounds or whatever. But I've been finding myself picking Warden's Cage most of the time because of its zone of control and just being able to create the disruption in the battlefield. I'm interested to see what you guys say. Roz, what do you think about these 2 ultimates?
I have a feeling that when Maiev goes live on the HGC, that Containment Disc will be played more there. I just think that level of control and isolating one person, just like a Cocoon, but on a shorter cooldown, and like you can't break it. I think that's going to be really powerful. But I do see them using Warden's Cage a little bit. I definitely think that if you're queuing up in quick match or unranked draft, that Warden's Cage should be the go-to.
What do you think, Mystic?
I think Roz is right in that aspect, because Warden's Cage right now, it's like, unless you're testing it out or people are testing it out, they don't know like what the ins and outs of Warden's Cage are. They see it come up and they're like, oh, the thing, if I touch it, it's gonna one-shot me or something. But no, it's, you touch it and you bounce back and it breaks it away. It's not, you can run into it and it'll just bounce you back every single time. No, it destroys a portion of the wall. So that's really good for right now because people don't know how to deal with it yet. But I think Containment Disc is going to be the more go-to ultimate just because of how useful it can be. Because you can time the stasis of the Containment Disc so you can use it very strategically.
What about the Wombo combo potential of Warden's Cage, though? I mean, pulling people in towards the center of an ability is a very powerful thing that you can get. I remember, was it S of Johan, I think, that Li Ming used to have, that pulled people in towards the center. They had to remove that talent. Even just a small displacement towards the center makes it a lot easier to combo other abilities like Mosh Pits, Apox, like just anything like that. Ring of Frost can be a lot more devastating and easier to set up if you pull off a Warden's Cage properly.
I mean, I think any ability that forces a sudden change of decision from your opponent has a lot of power in unranked draft, even Hero League. You know, all these displacement abilities, you know, boops and knockbacks and, you know, all these things that change the location of your character when you are not prepared for it to happen. Those split-second moments in solo queue, you're not often prepared for. In a planned competitive environment with a team that you were communicating with, you can prepare for those things. So anything that forces a decision out of your opponent does have a lot of value, I think. I don't know that when this hits the pros that they're going to be as surprised by it as you know, as the other ultimate containment is.
One thing I've been finding with Maiev all over Quick Match and just playing with Maiev is she creates a lot of confusion. Because like you're saying, like, not only do you have the Warden's Cage pulling people in, but you've got the Umbral Binds like pulling people back in too. And there's nothing worse than getting like displaced like that. Because like you said, you've got to make that snap decision. Okay, now I'm in a different spot. How am I going to react to this? It's like getting hooked by a Stitches or swapped by an Artanis almost, in that it can completely ruin your day and find yourself in a really bad spot. Okay, so let's go along onto the talent tree. I want to give a big shout out to Math of the Storm, because Roz already mentioned their article before, and I read it over as well. They had a lot of good insights. I went to Icy Veins. I got a lot of personal insight here, and I'm sure Roz and Mystic also do. But Math of the Storm has a great analysis. The link for that's going to be in the show notes. Definitely check out the Math of the Storm article when you get a chance. But on level 1, she's got 3 talents to choose from. Bonds of Justice is the first one. So it's a questing talent. Each tether applied to a secondary target of Umbral Bind permanently increases Umbral Bind's pull damage by 15. Very important to note, this is of a secondary target. But the one thing about that is you can attack a minion, you'll still do the cleave and apply a tether, and that will be considered a secondary target for the bind. It's not like you have to hit a hero and it has to go on a second hero. You can hit a minion, and as long as it's the cleave that catches them, not the initial impact of the auto attack, this will count towards this. Make sure I test that before we do this. So you also have a reward as well as of the uncapped damage stacking here. After 5 tethers are applied to secondary targets, you increase Umbral Bind's pull damage by 75. And after applying 10 tethers to secondary targets, increase Umbral Bind's cleave damage by 30%, which brings it in line with her auto attack. So you basically get a little bit extra damage on the cleave as well. Okay, other than that, she's got Pursuit of Vengeance. Each hero tethered by Umbral Bind reduces the cooldown of Spirit of Vengeance, her E, by 1.5 seconds. And then Naisha's Memento. It's an activatable. Activate to make primary basic attacks bounce between nearby enemies up to 2 times, dealing 30% more damage to bounce targets. So it's more damage, not less damage, which you'd probably expect from something like this. And it lasts 8 seconds. You can recharge Naisha's Memento by hitting at least 2 heroes with a single fan of knives. And it prioritizes heroes. The bounce distance is pretty great. It's 4.25. And the second bounces can actually return to the original target. So you can bounce to a hero and then bounce back, kind of like Cassia's ultimate, the orb that she throws around. So what are your guys' thoughts on this talent here? Let's start with you, Mystic. What do you think about these 3?
I think these are all like, you kind of, they're all paths. They're all the beginning of paths. You can choose one, and then that'll be the beginning of a path for each one of your abilities. The Bonds of Justice for the W, Pursuit of Vengeance for the E, and then Naisha's Memento for more auto attack based one. I think the Naisha's Memento is the strongest one, just because it's very easy to use, and that if you're getting your fan of knives off, which isn't particularly hard in like skirmishy team fights, then you can have it up almost all the time. And that beyond that, it's a very strong talent.
What do you think, Roz? I was having some problems getting my Naisha's Memento up constantly when we were playing. Do you think that's the go-to talent, or do you like the other ones here as well?
I also like this talent. I had the same issue as you, where I wasn't quite sure of how sturdy Maiev was going to be, so I was kind of sheepish about getting in there and tossing out my fan and knives, and so I wasn't keeping a good uptime on Nicious Memento. In fact, I don't think I reset it once on my first game. But as I went back in and kept trying and kept practicing, and then getting a feel for how she flows in combat. It is pretty easy to keep that thing up, and it's basically just a free damage boost.
Yeah, I found that too. Like I said, when we were playing yesterday, I was having issues getting the resets on it, but after you get a feel for that very awkward shaped skill shot, because it's a crescent. I think it's the only crescent shaped ability we've got. The only thing I can think that it might be similar to is maybe like Tyrael's Smite, but it's got like the curves on the end. So once you get used to that, and if you're facing at least a couple melee heroes, generally it's fairly easy to keep it up so you can get the Nicious Memento proc. And I mean, 30% extra damage to bounce targets, that's pretty impressive. It's like charge strikes but on steroids to a certain degree, and you can keep it up. You can have 100% uptime with this if you're good at hitting your fan and knives. So I think I'm kind of on the camp with you guys. Nicious Memento's the strongest here. I feel like Bonds of Justice might be like the maybe I was gonna say the easier one, but it's kind of hard to get those secondary tethers off. There's some of these conditional talents that kind of make some of these choices difficult sometimes if you want to play lazy. But I think Nicious Memento is the way to go too. All right, so level 4, we've got Pin Down. It's a questing talent. Hit 3 enemy heroes with a single fan of knives. The reward is you increase the fan of knives damage by 15%. So there's a reward as well. If each additional time 3 enemy heroes are hit by a single fan of knives, gain additional 5% damage up to 30%. So if you hit 3, you get 15% automatically. Then every other time you do that again, you get an additional 5 up to 30%. Then you can hit 4 enemy heroes with a single fan of knives, and you instantly get up to that 30% damage additional tier. This reminds me of what's his name? Not the Taster, the evil Taster guy. Come on, Roz. You play him frequently too. Alarak, there it is. Alarak's talent where you got to hit 4 heroes to lightning to get all the talent rewards at once. Blade Dance is the next talent on this tier. Using fan knives deals 54 physical damage to enemies around Maiev. And then Sudden Vengeance is the last one. Using Blink within 0.35 seconds of Spirit of Vengeance hitting an enemy hero causes the shadow to explode, damaging all nearby enemy heroes for 5% other maximum health. Yeah, so just another note here too, and this is just thanks to Math of the Storm. Almost every non-warrior hero in the game will have more damage done to them by 2 procs of Blade Dance, as opposed to just getting the 5% chunking off Sudden Vengeance. So I think their argument there is that Blade Dance is just generally better because you're going to get that off a lot more because you're going to be using fan knives pretty frequently, especially if you're getting resets to maximize the damage here. We'll start with Roz first. What do you think of these 3 here? Are you kind of agreeing with Math of the Storm that Blade Dance is probably the best way to go, or do you like the other 2?
Yeah, I really like Blade Dance. It gives you a little bit more consistent wave clear, and it has a really good synergy with level 7, 13, and 16 talents that just really increase your physical damage. And then it has some applications with armor and this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's the way to go right now.
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting little thing that Blizzard put in here, is that it's physical damage the Blade Dance does. It doesn't spell damage. So all of those talents that increase physical damage, or you get effects from, I think there's one where you can recharge your level 20 talent by applying physical damage to enemies. Well, this is additional physical damage you're applying to enemies too, right? How about you, Mystic? What do you think about these ones?
I mean, when I first looked at these talents, I'm like, they're all really good. Pin Down, just the extra Fan of Knives damage. And then Sudden Vengeance, I thought would be really good. This is the one that actually underperformed for me a little bit. Like, I was like, oh man, if you go in, then you do the 5% of their maximum health to all nearby enemy heroes. I thought that'd be pretty good, but it only gets a lot of value if all the enemies are grouped up around it. So that was a little bit worse than I thought. And then Blade Dance, the one that I thought wouldn't be as good, was actually a lot better than I thought. So for here, I think Pin Down or Blade Dance, I think would be better. Sudden Vengeance, it's still good. It's just a little bit underwhelming for me.
I think I was in the same camp as you on the Sudden Vengeance Blade Dance dilemma. Even as recently as today, I was still taking Sudden Vengeance all the time until I started reading some more analysis on it, because it looks sexy, right? With like the 5% of maximum health. The only problem that I found is, like you're saying, you get more value if enemies are grouped up, but then I was using my E very aggressively and losing my escape because it forces you to use your blink, potentially, you know, putting it on cooldown, not making it available to get out if you need to. Whereas Blade Dance, like I was saying, Math of the Storm said, if you can constantly hit those Qs, you're going to get more than 5% of most heroes' health just with a few procs of that. Plus, it gives you the wave clear, like Roz was talking about as well. It does, I guess the one reason it doesn't look as good is because, you know, you see 54 physical damage. That seems like next to nothing, whereas 5% of a hero's maximum health seems like a lot and maybe is a good finisher, but still, I think for sustained damage, Blade Dance is the way to go. Okay, so level 7, we've got Elun's Wrath, Bonds of Corruption, and Ruthless Spirit. Elun's Wrath, hitting at least 2 heroes with a single fan of knives causes the next fan of knives to drop a star on the targets that deals 77 damage when it impacts. Bonds of Corruption, enemy heroes pulled by Umbral Bind have their physical armor. I didn't know it was physical armor. I thought it was all armor, but it's just physical armor reduced by 25 for 3 seconds. And then Ruthless Spirit. Spirit of Vengeance's damage is increased by 3% per minion, mercenary, or enemy summon hit, and 24% per enemy hero hit. So, Mystic, what do you think about these 3 here?
I think Elun's Wrath is really good because the extra star that causes 77 extra damage, it just compounds if you take like Blade Dance or, you know, Pin Down. You're going to be hitting those knives in team fights anyway, so all of that is just extra damage. Bonds of Corruption is also really good because it synergizes, well, when you guys said that Blade Dance does physical damage, right? It synergizes with that, right? So that 25 reduced physical armor is really good because Maiev's auto attacks actually hit for really hard.
Like a truck.
Yeah. And then Ruthless Spirit here, I mean, I think the Spirit of Vengeance is too slow for this to be used that effectively, because if you see that spirit coming out, you know, most enemies, like, initial reaction is, oh, what's that large, like, dark thing headed towards me? I'm going to move out of the way and not stand in it. So it's kind of hard to get value out of that. I think Bonds of Corruption or Elun's Wrath.
Yeah, I mean, Ruthless Spirit may give you a little bit extra wave clear too, but I feel like her wave clear is actually not all that bad. If you throw an E out, it can wipe through the wave twice because it's very predictable where they're going to be. Plus, you can get wow, God, how am I forgetting the name of a fan of knives? You can get a couple fan of knives out, and then, you know, within 4 seconds, maybe a few more auto attacks, you've got pretty much the blade, the wave gone. So I'm not sure if that's necessary, and the damage up, but like you said, it's a pretty long cooldown, whereas Elun's Wrath, you can get a lot more value out of it, especially if you're getting those resets over and over again, getting that extra damage. What do you think, Roz? Like, Bonds of Corruption was the way that I kept going, because it's like anytime you see lowering physical armor or lowering armor at all, that's a very powerful ability. Do you think that's too conditional, or is Elun's Wrath the way to go?
No, I think it's pretty good. Like, if you think about the scenario when you're doing the combo, say that you get a Umbral Bind, you get 2 people in, and then you do a Fan of Knives, then you get a reset on Fan of Knives, and you do 1, 2, or 3, or however many you're able to do in that chunk of time. You know, if you took Blade Dance at 4, and then you go Bonds of Corruption at 7, you know, say they had 0 physical armor, and now they are taking 25% more damage from your physical. So you're getting a little bit more value out of your level 4 talent. And of course, you're going to, you know, you would definitely take that if they've got an Arthas or a Johanna or something like that, to reduce that physical armor. But say you went the, you know, Pin Down at 4 and you go the Elun's Wrath, then you're going to get the same bang for your buck, but in a different path, you know, if you do that WQ repeated combo. So it really depends on your level 4 talent, I think. And then, you know, you could take Blade Dance at 4 and then still go into Elun's Wrath. I think at 7, you just have to ask yourself, do my opponents have physical armor that I need to reduce, or not?
God, doesn't her kit work well with a whole bunch of melee heroes and just like clumping up? You can just do like crazy damage. I saw a Twitch clip, I think it's trending on Reddit right now, of a fan like 1v2ing Blaze and I can't remember who else, maybe it was a Tyrande, and he was like at half health and they were both pretty much full health, and he just went Q, 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 and they're both dead. And he was just sitting there being like, I shouldn't be able to do that because that's just so strong. I'm not sure what level it was at, but I'm assuming he might have had some Loon's Wrath stacks there too or something. But yeah, she's pretty crazy when you get at least two heroes clumped up together. So we've already talked about the ultimate, so let's skip on to level 13. We've got Bladed Armor. Each enemy hero hit by fan and knives grants 5 armor for 5 seconds up to 20 armor. Chain Gang, tethering at least 2 enemy heroes with Umbral Bind grants 35 armor for 4 seconds. That is the highest amount of armor you can get on this talent tier, but it is pretty conditional. And then Shadow Armor is the final one. Blink grants 25 armor for 2.5 seconds. Maev's basic attacks against enemy heroes refresh this duration. I was going Bladed Armor because I was like, you know what, especially looking at level 16 Armored Assault, I was like, you know, I can keep my armor up nonstop just by hitting fan and eyes once every 4 or 5 seconds. But I'm starting to lean towards Shadow Armor now because you blink in and then you can just refresh the duration with your auto attacks, which you should be doing anyways. What do you think here, Roz? What are you looking at here?
I really don't have a preference. I tried to get value out of the Shadow Armor. I hate to tie my survivability to something like Blink where I'm using it depending on the situation. So I'd probably be leaning more towards the Bladed Armor or the Chain Gang, at least for me personally.
How about you, Mystic? Do you like having that armor on your escape ability as an engage? Because suddenly when you've got to level 13, if you take Shadow Armor, you gotta change your playstyle potentially a little bit if you're being more passive before with your E's.
I mean, level 13, I don't know. I don't even think Maiev needed this tier. Like, she already has 10 base armor, one of the highest healths for an assassin in the game. Does she really need more armor? Well, Blizzard thinks so. So, I don't know. Like, Bladed Armor, pretty good, because you're going to be hitting Phantom Knives anyway. Chain Gang, I'd say, is the hardest one to use, but it's still, like, it's still really good, because 35 armor for 4 seconds, if you combine that with her 10 base armor, she has 45 armor. What is that? Like, on an assassin, she's going to run at you, you're going to hit her with a Pyroblast, and she's going to be like, either she's going to vault and dodge it, or just be like, I don't care. Freaking, ew, man. Shadow Armor, too. I mean, yeah, you can, you know, when you use that Blink to escape, but with this, you can also use that Blink for a really heavy engage. Because you, like, go in, and if you're auto-attacking someone, as long as you're auto-attacking someone, you have 35 armor. 35 armor is a lot, so it's going to be a while before they take you down anyway. It might even be long enough for your E to come back up, so.
Yeah.
Too much armor.
I'm gonna have to play around a little bit with Shadow Armor, but I felt like Bladed Armor was what I initially gravitated towards, but seeing that potentially permanent 25 armor in team fights is a nice little nugget there to look at. At level 16, we've got Cruel Chain. Umbral Bind grants 25% movement speed for 2.5 seconds. In addition, every time Maiev deals damage to tethered targets, Umbral Bind's pull damage to all targets is increased by 40% up to 200%. So I had to read this one a few times to figure out exactly what it does. So let's try and give it a little bit of an explanation here. Okay, so you've got to tether a target. So using your Umbral Bind on someone, make sure that the tether is not broken yet. You have to deal damage to the tethered target. So you might have to like throw an E at them or auto attack them. And the more people you damage, up to 5 people, you'll stack 40% extra damage on the pull damage. So it's a very clunky conditional to get that maximum 200% bonus damage, but I guess if you're going an Umbral Bind build, maybe this is the way to go. Vengeful Knives. For each enemy hero Spirit of Vengeance hits, Maev's next fan of knives deals 1% maximum health as bonus damage to enemy heroes. And then finally, Armored Assault. While Maiev has more than 10 armor of any kind, and thanks to level 13, it's not hard to get that extra bit, all physical damage dealt is increased by 35%. Now, physical damage, this also can be your level 4 talent, was it? Your Blade Dance counts as physical damage, so this procs that as well. And Yeah, and also this also increases Naisha's momentum. Level 1, the active available gives you 30% bonus damage. That's 30% bonus damage to your auto attacks, so that's physical damage as well. Armored Assault seems like the no-brainer here to me, but what do you guys think? Let's start with Mystic.
I think Armored Assault is indeed the strongest one here. Cruel Chain has actually a lot of value if you do go the Umbral Bind build. And then Vengeful Knives, I don't even know why this is here. Like, if it was for each enemy hit, your next Fan of Knives does 1% maximum health as bonus damage to enemy heroes. I could see it being a level 16 talent, but it's like... So if you use your Vengeful Spirit and you hit all 5 of the enemies, now your next Fan of Knives will do 5%, to all heroes hit by the next Fan of Knives. You know what? You know what other talent does that? Your level 4 Vengeful Spirit talent. It's like... okay.
That's true. And then I guess you could always combine those two. You could jump in as an engage, hit a whole bunch of them, and then throw out a Fan of Knives to get a little extra bursty. But still, I agree with you. It seems like the weaker talent, at least to me. What do you think, Roz?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think Armored Assault's going to give you value pretty much all the time, and you might as well go with it because it's easier to use. Cruel Chain, I think, can have... I do think that this has a place. We just got to figure out how. And then Vengeful Knives, maybe, I don't know, in a Wombo scenario or something. I don't really see this in its current state getting a lot of value. I could be wrong though.
Yeah, I don't think you are. I think Armored Assault's the way to go. In level 20, she's got 3 orb talents. These are all activatable. She doesn't have anything to upgrade her ultimate, which is fairly unique in the game. Shadow Orb Vengeance is the first one. Activate to reset the cooldown of Spirit of Vengeance, which is her E. Recharge Shadow Orb by damaging enemy heroes with Spirit of Vengeance 5 times. So with all of these Shadow Orbs, it's not just a cooldown timer. There's a conditional to recharge it, very much like her Naisha's momentum. Shadow Orb Huntress is the next one. Activate to increase movement speed and attack speed by 40% for 5 seconds. Then recharge Shadow Orb by dealing physical damage to enemy heroes 10 times. And don't forget Naisha's momentum. And Blade Dance also help proc that too. And then Shadow Orb Shadow Strike's the third one. Activate to deal 75 damage to enemy heroes, slowing them by 30% and reducing their armor by 20 for 4 seconds. You can also recharge Shadow Orbs by by dealing spell damage to enemy heroes 10 times. So Roz, what do you think is the go-to one here?
I think you can kind of pick and choose these depending on the situation, but I think that there are some clear winners over those. Obviously, if you've gone with the level 4 physical damage, then you're going to be able to keep Shadow Orb Huntress up quite consistently. And I think the only thing that Maiev needs to be a complete devastating monster is just having movement speed. Because if she can just weave in and out without the need of her blinks, I think that's going to be pretty powerful. So I like Huntress a lot. Followed by Shadow Strike, which is pretty straightforward. It's like a pacify kind of deal. And then the Shadow Orb Vengeance. I'm not a big fan of this one. And I don't see me taking it unless I've already invested into all of the other Shadow or Spirit of Vengeance talents, like that give you the armor for going in and building up the damage on your Spirit of Vengeance. As far as needing it for an escape, I wouldn't necessarily take this talent for that reason. So.
Okay, wombo combo potential here. Shadow Orb Vengeance. If you take the ability to give 5% damage when you blink on heroes, plus that one that we said was crap, with the 1% maximum health as bonus damage for every hero hit, but then you can also reset it and do that kind of combo over again. We're talking 10, 20, like 20% damage on potentially all heroes. I mean, that's very conditional and very situational, but that could potentially be like a pretty big wombo-y combo there that could be pulled off within a couple of seconds. Shadow Orb Huntress too, you can get 100% uptime on that because you've got 40% extra attack speed. It only takes an extra 10 hero hits to keep it up, whereas the other two I feel like can take a little bit longer to bring up, especially if you don't hit for Shadow Orb Vengeance, for instance. 5 heroes with 1 Spirit of Vengeance, you gotta wait an extra 10 seconds to bring that up again. And Shadow Strike too, you gotta do spell damage to enemy heroes 10 times, which can be tough because your only spell damage really, well, I guess you've got your Fan of Knives as well, your Spirit of Vengeance, maybe that isn't as hard. But Mystic, what do you think here? Is Huntress the way to go?
Yeah, basically. It's the most... I think it's the strongest one here. While Shadow Orb Shadow Strike does have its place, it's actually not bad at all. I think Shadow Orb Huntress is just too strong. And then Vengeance, it's, I mean, very, very situational, I think. While it's cool when you use your Spirit of Vengeance, you get it stacked up, use it, you go in, and you do all this stuff, and you activate it, get out with it. That's pretty cool, too. It makes you much more mobile, but I think it is not as good as Shadow Strike or Huntress.
Come on, Roz, you're a Sylvanas player. Isn't this like your Windrunner talent? Shadow Orb Vengeance, shouldn't you be gravitating towards this? Give you the extra blink?
I just hate that her Spirit of Vengeance has 1 second shorter cooldown than Haunting Wave. That's
just throwing you right off, eh?
Yeah.
So what do we think about Maiev? Are we going to see nerfs right away? Is that what we're expecting here? Because, I mean, 65% win rate, I know it's early, but that's awfully high and very oppressive. Do you expect that we'll see a balance patch on next Tuesday?
Here's what I think. I think we will see a balance patch, although I do believe Blizzard will let it sit for a while. I mean, they want to see how it shakes out, right? Like maybe someone discovers a really big counter to Maiev that no one's ever thought of, and then her win rate suddenly like drops like a rock. But I think for right now, as far as like just looking at what's happening so far goes, is they need to reduce the Fan of Knives damage. I think they need to, if they're going to keep the armor, I think they need to reduce her health. Spirit of Vengeance, I think they need to make it a 12-second cooldown. And I think that's a good start right there. I think if I were Blizzard and I was taking baby steps, I'd put that in there and then see what we could do from there.
What would you target, Roz? Would you target her kit or her talents here? Because she does seem to have some very strong synergistic talents that could be easily targeted for nerfs. But I mean, targeting the base kit and, you know, increasing cooldowns, decreasing damage, decreasing health pools, that's always another way to go. What way do you think they're going to take here? Or which way would you take?
I agree with Mystic. Her Spirit of Vengeance should be 12 seconds. Therefore, it's 1 second longer cooldown than Haunting Wave. Okay. But yeah, I agree. I don't think, yeah, like Mystic said, I don't think the armor should go, because then that also plays into her level, or into her armor talents. So they would have, if they tweak that, they'd have to tweak a lot of other things. So like you said, I think this more simple method would be to go after her health pool, and then I think that the cooldown reduction on Fan of Knives may find that it's a bit egregious at this point. Be able to spam that much damage that rapidly can be a little scary. So I don't know if they either change the base cooldown on it or change what it gets reduced to. I'm sure they could find the happy medium there. Yeah, so yeah, health and then Fan of Knives, and I think she'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm on the camp that I think the damages should be reduced. I like the fact that she's got a high health pool and the armor there too, because most melee assassins have some form of health regen, and she really doesn't. Your thralls, you've got your Frostwolf Resilience, your like Alarax, you've got your little lightning bit that you throw out there to heal. Kerrigan's got her shields. Like everyone's got something to give them some health back, where she doesn't have that. So I feel like if you nerfed her health, she wouldn't be able to be that aggressive frontline character. And I guess that's one thing that people forget. And I think Matt the Storm actually mentioned it too. Like, yeah, she does have a higher health pool, but like in the Sonya and Malthael case that they were talking about, they're saying, well, Sonya and Malthael can heal up the damage they lose, Sonya from spinning and Malthael from using his Q. So that can effectively kind of make you tankier. And it's kind of hard to do that math for Math of the Storm, because it's so situational and there's so many different conditions that kind of apply to that. But I wouldn't want them nerfing her health or armor too much, because I feel like that'd remove a big part of her cap.
I'd like to chime in a little bit on that, because Sonya and Maltheo are like they can go in the solo lane, right? So not saying that Maiev can't, but and then they have the healing in that sense, right? So here's what I think. Heroes of the Storm is a game where generally, right, unless it's like quick match, you have a healer in every single game, right? So which means that healing, if you have healing on you, unless it's like a super core part of your kit, then it is like the value of it is somewhat reduced because you do have a healer on your team, which means that in this sense, since Maiev doesn't have any form of sustain, so she's like worse in a solo lane in that sense. However, in the game as a whole, since she has the armor, that higher health pool, and that her power budget is more like in everything else, then that makes a healer more valuable for her because heals get the more effective HP, because when you heal her, it like gives her more health because she has that armor, right? So I think she's really strong in that sense. Like even if she doesn't have the healing, just the fact that healers are so core to the game that they just like make her a lot stronger.
And nothing worse than queuing into QM as Maiev or Grey Mane or any of those that doesn't have any sort of health regen outside of fountains going back to the core and health globes, because that's just a bad feeling. You get chunked down to half health. There's no way to recover it. But like you said, every game that is a properly formed game, and unranked or ranked, you will have that healer, and she is, having the armor makes it more effective healing too. So it'll be interesting to see which way Blizzard goes. But I think it's pretty safe to say nerfs are incoming. Okay, let's look at the rest of the patch notes. A lot of this we covered last week because a lot of the PTR stuff just moved over to live. A couple notable things that changed, though, that we're going to talk about today. First off, voice chat, it did not make it over. It's still just in the PTR. They're going to let that simmer and settle for a bit. I imagine there's probably a lot of bugs they want to get ironed out there before they bring it over to the main game. The target info panels, you guys talked about it last week, but one thing that I noticed too is you can't press the C button anymore. It was driving me crazy because I use the C button quite a bit, especially when like play testing and such, just to see what speeds and auto attack damages and everything. But now if you want to get those stats, you have to left click on your hero and get the target, the info panel instead. One thing Roz actually pointed out to me was the health bars of the mage mercenaries are ridiculously large, like from a UI perspective, not like in terms of amount of health when they're in lane. So it's a lot easier to pick that mage minion out, the one that you're supposed to focus first, people please, to get rid of that spell armor that they grant to everyone in their radius. So nice little change here. I'm not sure if didn't see that in the patch notes, so I thought I'd just mention that here. Volskaya, they did get protector buffs and a few changes that we talked about last week, but they also changed a couple other things recently too. One of which I thought was kind of neat. The healing pulse now acts like a totem. It sits on the ground and heals all the heroes in the affected area for 10 seconds as opposed to being that like burst, like that you just kind of like pulse out instantly. And turrets also now can be placed instantly, which is nice too. I always found it kind of clunky that you had to wait a couple seconds to place a turret on the ground, especially if you're in like a team fight scenario. A couple seconds or whatever it took to cast that turret placement could be pretty annoying. Have you guys had any games with Volskaya since the patch has hit?
Yeah, I've had one.
What do you guys think of the protector buffs? It seems a lot stronger now.
It feels good. Volskaya has been one of my favorite maps since it came out, and despite the fact that the protector feels so weak, I enjoy the dynamics of this map. But that first Punisher finally feels like you should be Protector. Feels like it has an impact. In both team fights and siege potential. So I definitely enjoyed that. I will say, I was playing around with the healing pulse totem now that it is, and I don't know if you guys played around with it, but I was having trouble placing it on the ground. In my opponent's fort area. I could only place it in neutral areas. So I don't know if that's intentional. I had the totem in my hand. It was ready to go, and I kept trying to press it. Fortunately, I was Lucio, so I was good. I had my sound barrier and everything. But I don't know, it was weird, and I had to go back to like the middle of the map, and finally it worked. So I don't know what the deal was there.
That's a really strange interaction. I don't think there's anything that I can think of that is blocked based on the area that you're in. So that's a very strange bug if it does exist. I mean, when I was playing around with it, I saw this in the patch notes, so I just went into sandbox mode and tested it out, just placed it on the ground near where I picked it up, so I didn't have a chance to try and place it in the enemy's area of control or anything like that. But interesting bug. You have to submit that to Blizzard and let them know about it, maybe. But yeah, I mean, that it's nice having the objective do something stronger now. It does feel very powerful. Like the health, additional health makes a difference. It seems to hit harder, especially when you've got the two heroes in it now. So it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic works. No more, put one person in the objective and you don't even need a gunner type situation, or just ignore the objective and just push, similar to Haunted Mines, which I think they also need to fix, by the way. But still, it seems like it's a pretty good change. I'm impressed that it's your favorite map there, Roz, since it came out too. I've always kind of liked it, but I haven't liked the conveyor belt dynamic, especially on the third objective that spawns with the two going in opposing circles. Mystic, have you been liking Volskaya in the one game you played it since the patch dropped?
Well, the one game that I played it was quite tough because our team wasn't doing so hot. But I could see that the Protector was a lot stronger since the enemy team they got the Protector. Like they had two people in it. I was like, all right, let's see how strong this Protector is right now. So I kind of like walked up to it a little bit, and yeah, it hits really hard now.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. You might get blown up pretty quickly. Okay, we did have some nerfs to Genji, Greymane. Well, Greymane had a bit of a rework, but he also got a little tiny nerf on top of that with a balance patch. Hanzo got a nerf as well. Malthael had a couple changes to him other than the rework that he got last week, which we talked about on the PTR. Morales got a small change, and Tyrael had also some changes, which we talked about last week. So let's start at the top of the list with Genji. He's down almost 5% in win rate since the patch dropped, and that is because Dragon Blade damage has been reduced by 8%, and level 20 Dragon Blade upgrade bonus duration is the increase that you get on the duration has been decreased from 0.75 to 0.5 seconds for enemy heroes hit. So is this what Genji needed? Because I think bans have been getting pretty boring. Genji, Hanzo, Genji, Hanzo, Genji, Hanzo. But I mean, now we've got Maiev, so maybe it's going to be Maiev, one of these two. Do you think Genji's still ban-worthy, or is this taking him into a more balanced state? What do you think, Mystic?
I think ban Maiev 100%. If you really don't like playing against Genji, go ahead and ban him. I don't think Hanzo is too ban-worthy anymore since they nerfed two of his core talents. That wasn't, like Dragon's Arrow. So I don't think he's really ban-worthy anymore. This patch, like reducing the damage of Dragon Blade and reducing the duration of the level 20 talent, I think it really puts Genji in a spot where he has to be a finisher now. He's like not much else anymore. Like he can go in and do damage, but he might get like blown up after his protect comes off. So it's pushing him more towards, hey, you have to be a finisher. You can't go in there and do like that much damage anymore.
It's amazing how one change essentially to an ultimate can make such a difference in someone's win rate too. Again, I know it's a small sample size in hot slogs and such, but it's hot slogs is generally pretty accurate. What do you think, Roz? Is that just simply what's going on here? Like you nerf Dragon Blade and you nerf Genji?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. I think this is definitely targeted, I think, towards the pro scene. That level 20 Dragon Blade upgrade at the 0.5 or 0.75 per second CDR. It kind of decided a lot of the ends of some pro games over the past couple of weeks. So I know that it's really powerful. But like Mystic was saying, I think Genji shouldn't be able to, go into the back line with Dragon Blade / bring down a mage's health from 80 to 40% or something like that, and then be in a comfortable range to do Swift Strike and then do the whole thing again. So I think it's fair. I think if people in the the general average player base of HOTS are going to be happy with changes to Genji. It's not going to be through Dragon Blade. It's going to be through either a range or damage reduction on Swift Strike. So we'll see.
So, Mystic, do you think that Genji's eventually going to fall to a place kind of like we see Maeiv, where he can be used effectively in very like coordinated, highly skilled environments, but in general play he's not as good unless you're like very proficient at the hero?
For this nerf, I think it's really pushing it close to that point, because in professional play he's used because he's really mobile. He does pretty good damage, and his Dragon Blade is like, it's pretty good. With this nerf to Dragon Blade, I think, or the double nerfs to Dragon Blade here, I think it's, like I said, really pushing it close to there. We might even see, pros like that take Genji, take X Strike here, and see what they can do with that, because Dragon Blade just doesn't cut it anymore. So
I see what you did there. Okay, let's move along to Genji's brother then, the other ban-worthy item who may not be as ban-worthy anymore because he's down not quite as much as Genji, only 1.5% since the patch, which I think is well within the error bounds here, so who knows exactly what that'll settle into. But they nerfed 2 of his level 7 talents, 2 very strong talents, to Never Outmatched, which gives you a cooldown reduction on Scatter Arrow with your auto attack. Your auto attacks has been reduced from 4 to 2.5 seconds per basic attack cooldown reduction, so it's not up nearly as often. This is going to affect his jungling ability, as well as just his raw damage output, because that scatter arrow won't be up every couple of seconds like it was before. And then Sharpened Arrowhead is on the same talent tier. The armor reduction was reduced from 4 to 2 per damage dealt from scatter arrow or whatever you require for that. The max stacks, however, was increased from 5 to 10, so you can still get the same maximum negative armor on debuff applied of 20. However, it's just a little bit more difficult to get there. You got to hit the heroes with more scatter arrows, etc. The duration also of the armor reduction has been reduced from 4 to 3 seconds. So, I mean, do you think, guys, was Genji nerf greater than Hanzo? I mean, this is a pretty devastating nerf to his level 7 talents here, but I mean his win rate's not down as much as Genji's. Do you think Hanzo still should be banned along with Maiev? Maybe Mystic, what do you think?
I don't think Hanzo should be banned as much anymore. I mean, he still has a lot. It's just this level 7 talent tier was really big for him, because Never Outmatched was what allowed the sharpened, or the W build, the scatter arrow build, to actually work like really well, because you'd sit there and you'd auto attack the minion wave, right, and then you just shoot out scatter arrows like every couple of seconds, and that's what poked down the enemy team. That's what your main value from the scatter arrow build came from, like before level 16. After level 16 you could probably chunk someone pretty hard, but before then, this is where your main damage came from. It's really long ranged poke. So they gutted that talent. It's still okay, but it's not like as good as it used to be. It requires more auto attacks now. Sharpened arrowheads, they completely like destroyed this talent. I mean, it was really strong, right? It was really OP, but reducing the armor from 4 to 2, I thought that was good, okay? But then changing the max stacks from 5 to 10 is like, okay, so you kept like the 20 maximum armor shred there, but you have to be sitting there attacking the target every 3 seconds up to 10 times. That's gonna take a while to get up to those 10 stacks. So it's okay. It's all right, but still usable.
So Roz, if you're sitting there in an unranked or ranked game and you've got the crown, you're banning, you see Maiev get banned first, and it's your turn to ban. Who are you banning? Are you banning Hanzo? Are you banning Genji? Are you banning somebody else? What do you think?
I'm probably banning something related to the map, I think. I don't think he's maybe as ubiquitous of a ban as maybe he used to. The level 7 nerfs are passive nerfs to his level 4 talent, scatter arrow talent for sure. I still wonder if maybe his PvE damage needs to be addressed a little bit. His ability to just disappear a boss immediately is maybe needs to be addressed. But this is definitely a step in the right direction. I do agree with Mystic. I think the sharpened arrowheads was maybe a little too much, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think Varian might be a little bit offended here. Twin Blades Varian is supposed to be the only person to be able to solo bosses, right? Hanzo's edging into his territory here. So Greymane is down about 3% since the patch. He did get the changes to the cocktail build, and he got the change to Wizened Duelist at level 7. Again, we talked about that last week. When I say we, I mean Mystic and LiQuiuD, because I wasn't here. I was off at Disneyland with the kids. But he also received nerfs to his cocktail damage, 7% on the initial hit and the splash, and 4.5% damage reduction to Razor Swipe. Those seem pretty significant because a lot of his damage output comes from that Razor Swipe and the splash damage that you throw out there. What do you guys think about Greymane? Have you had much of a chance to play him since he's been released live? Have you played around with this new Wizened Duelist talent?
Yeah. It was funny because actually, like 2 or 3 days before the patch notes that came out with the Greymane changes, the rework, I had just had a conversation with my my raid team, my HOTS team, about how I think that Greymane's talent diversity needs to be addressed a little bit, and that there's too much emphasis on the cocktail build. And lo and behold, here it comes. And part of this came from back, I don't know how long it was ago, maybe about a year ago now, that Greymane's Inner Beast got sort of the talent, the CDR reduction got baked in, and then when he got that, the need for his other 2 level 1 talents almost diminished to nothing, unless there was some specific instance where, like on Battlefield of Eternity, where you take the Insatiable and stuff like that. But really, there's not really a need to take the other talents, and because he's able to just hard focus into the cocktail build. Now he's a master of everything. He's got burst damage, he's got splash damage, he's got auto attack damage, he can merc, he can solo lane, he can do just about anything he wants. And I think what, as scary as Genji and Hanzo are, I think what's scarier for the meta are generalist characters like Greymane that are so good at everything. And so I think that this is a good change. I'm fine with him being slightly more niched.
What are you taking at level 1 now? Are you still taking his Q talent, or are you looking? Because I mean, I was going on the additional cooldown on auto attacks and finding some success with that, because then it felt like it was almost always up, no matter what situation. I could use it a little bit more willy nilly than previously. Like, are you looking at the Proxos W, or are you looking at the Q?
I mean, I still think the other level 1 talents need to just be totally rethought. I still think the cocktail level 1 might still be the way to go, unless you go Insatiable. I don't really think you need the other Inner Beast talent. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I did notice when I played Greymane after the patch, throwing my cocktails out, not taking that level 1 Q talent, the range change is noticeable, and it's something you just get used to, because typically this is a go-to talent. But if you take that away and you go for one of the other talents, you lose that. It just changes the feel for your character. Mystic, what do you think about Greymane now? Like, do you go Wizened Duelist at 7, or do you stick with the standard cocktail stacking talent?
I think honestly it has become more situational now, because if there's a lot of range people that you can't really get to in Worgen form, that you take the cocktail one. So that one really helps. You go the cocktail build anyway. However, I think that if there's a lot of tanks or a lot of melees that you can, fight for maybe a long period of time to stack up the Wizened Duelist, then it is totally viable to go the Wizened Duelist talent. Because as far as the ranged auto attack is concerned, it's like you're never getting this quest done unless you're literally sitting there auto attacking a target dummy for like the entire match in ranged form. So you need to more or less complete it in Worgen form, and so if there's a lot of targets for you to hit in Worgen form, then it's really worth it.
Cool. We'll have to see how he shakes out coming through this, but I like playing Greymane, so hopefully he's not one of those that's been kind of nerfed out of the meta, because I always liked him, and I think Rozai put it pretty well, saying because he's a generalist hero, he's always going to have a place unless they do nerf him significantly, and I'm not sure if this is enough to do that. So Malthael had, again, a rework from the PTR patch we discussed last week. He's down almost 2% since that rework, and he did have a little orange note on the patch that dropped live yesterday. Level 20 Reaper of Souls bonus duration has been increased from 1 to 2 seconds, and hero takedowns will reset the duration instead of increasing it by 4 seconds. Mystic, I've seen you play Malthael in the past. What do you think of the new Malthael rework, just generally, because I know we talked about it in depth last week, but also just this changed level, his level 20 here?
Well, as far as Malthael goes, I think that he was buffed in the solo lane because he got a buff to his die alone talent, so that means he can do that very well. He can hit the minions, heal off of them, and hit the enemy hero at the same time and still get the bonus damage. So that's really good. However, with the nerf to his Tormented Souls talent and the changes to his abilities, I don't see why I would take that talent, really, because they buffed his ability to apply marks to everything with his AoE auto attacks and the bigger
Shroud.
Yeah, the Shroud. So it's like, if he's so good at applying the marks now, why even take it? Because Tormented Souls doesn't actually do any damage. It doesn't give armor anymore either, so the only thing it does is make the circle around you that applies marks, right? So, and then in turn, they also buffed the other ultimate, so that makes it a lot more appealing, and it is a little bit harder to use, but I think it's not bad. So it might change Malthael from a team fighter to more of a solo assassin, able to pick people off. And as far as the level 20 Reaper of Souls bonus is concerned, it's like they nerfed his damage, so I don't think it'll actually kill anything. And the bonus duration is good, but I don't think the takedowns will actually do anything. So
isn't that what the talent used to do? And they changed it to what it has been, which is that it just it extends it or whatever.
Does sound familiar.
Yeah,
I think so.
So Mystic, are you? I've played a lot of games with you when you've played Malthael, and you used to take last rites long before it was in vogue all the time. So you're saying it's hard to hit and stuff, but I mean, is it just the way to go now? Like, when I play Malthael next, should I just not even worry about Tormented Souls at all?
I mean, you'll still see Malthaels that take Tormented Souls, but it won't be. It's like a slight damage increase, I'd like to say. It's not that much different than if they had no heroic. So I think the reason, more or less, that I took the other one was because it was much more fun to use. Personally, I was just running around, just using it, assassinating people, and it was really funny because if you get it stacked up all the way, you get to level 20, you take the level 20 upgrade for last rites, then you're just spamming it on cooldown, 15-second cooldown. It was really fun to use. So now I think it's okay. A big reason that it worked so well when I used it way back then was because no one expects last rites. They always expect, Tormented Souls. But now with Tormented Souls not being as good, everybody taking last rites now, everybody's going to be expecting last rites, so it's going to be a lot less effective. There's no surprise factor anymore.
So the Malthaels hanging on to the dream of the Tormented Souls are gonna be like 70s rockers, like hanging on to the past, being like, that's the only time rock was good, right? That kind of thing. So okay, next time I play Malthael, I'll have to give last rites a try then, because I was a Tormented Soul of Malthael, but I want to make sure I stick with what's in vogue. Morales got a really small little change here. Safeguard can no longer be cast on non-heroic targets, so you can't cast it on those mage minions, those huge health bars anymore, I guess, to try and keep them alive, to keep that the armor aura up. And then Tyrael, also, I mean, wasn't on the show last week, so I get to talk about him on the PTR and his changes that he just recently got. But he's down about 1.6% since the patch. Roz, since it's been a while since he's been on the show, since Tyrael's been, his rework and his changes recently, like, what are you thinking of Tyrael these days?
I love the new Tyrael. And the pros, he has, I think he had like 100% involvement this weekend in North America. And then I think Caldor said like 100 times that in Europe or globally, he went from like a 30% participation rate to like an 86% participation rate. So like everybody in the pros is first picking him or second picking him. It's a lot of it's coming down to that level 1 shield talent that buffs your allied shields to 100% of what you get as Tyrael. And then you get Holy Ground earlier and whatnot. But I really like it. I'm not surprised that he dropped since the patch because he's so different from what he was. Now, I mean, it's not like a complete rework, but I think people are trying to get a feel for him. I don't necessarily feel that he's weaker.
We've talked about generalist heroes with like your gray mains and such. Tyrael seems very like situational. He has to fit into a team. Is that like what you guys think is that a proper assessment, or am I just blowing smoke here? Like, is Tyrael only fitting into certain comps, or is he a good just all around tank nowadays? Mystic, what do you think?
I think that he's a good overall tank because most people are taking Sanctification, so you know that it's an invincibility. It works against everything except for stasises and stuff like that. So he's really good, and just from like the changes that he got, I honestly think it's basically like taking old Tyrael, just giving him some stuff, and then there's new Tyrael. He doesn't do anything worse. He does a couple things better, but he's just overall all around better, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So you concur here, Roz? Are you picking Tyrael whenever you have to tank?
I mean, I think he's a lot more general now than he was because of that Sanctification, because he can buff his team with the shields, and then he gets a level 7 talent, I think, that gives a ridiculous amount of auto attack speed increase. So you pair him with a Greymane, and he's a perfect partner with Greymane, so who is also top meta pick right now. So
yeah, I guess there's a reason that he's 100% participation rate in North America, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's about it for the PTR patch. So, Mystic, you know what that means it's time for, do you?
Oh, yeah.
It's time for Mystic's Shakedown.
Mystic, I require a service of you. I come to you as a friend, asking you to shake down this situation for me.
So, Mystic, shake it down for us, bud.
Okay, so this week I'm going to be talking about experience, like, all the experience that you want your team to soak. However, they're always fighting and not soaking the lanes, and your minions are dying to your cannons. So here we go. The experience, you want to manage it as a resource, because that's exactly what it is. You collect it over time, and there's passive experience gain, and then you collect it from the minions, right? So the easiest way of experience collection is from the minions, right? You don't want to miss like any waves if possible. Now, kills are a higher risk kind of experience thing. If you're lower in experience than the enemy team is, then you might want to consider getting a kill along with the getting all the minions. If you miss a wave but you get a kill, but you're really far down in experience, it might be worth more than that wave. So kind of gotta weigh the risks and the rewards of the collection of experience. And you could think to yourself, so our team is fighting at the objective right now, but they're not losing very fast. So would it be valuable for me to kill these towers really quick and get us that little bit of boost in experience where both of the teams are 9? This might boost us a little bit higher so that we get 10, like maybe, I don't know, 5 seconds before the enemy team, and that might help swing the fight in our favor. So you got to take those risks and rewards of experience gaining into consideration. The value of experience in this game is very, very high because they unlock the talents, but not only that, but they give your team stats. So even if the team, even if your team is a talent tier or same talent tier as the enemy team, if you're 2 levels higher than them, you still have a stat advantage. So sometimes forcing those fights, you might not be on or you might be on even talent tiers, but having that stat advantage is always a really big help. So if you can see the values of experience because they unlock talent tiers and they give your team more stats and so forth. So, and then as always, like levels 9 to 10, really important. Levels 19 to 20, really important. You're going to want to watch those. That's why the game has a huge thing in the middle of your screen that says, hey, the enemy team has heroics, or hey, the enemy team has heroic storm talents. So those are always important.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate as much how much, like, even just one level can make a difference in terms of stats. Like you said, if you're on the same talent tier, because 4% damage and health scaling on all heroes, you add that up to 5 heroes, it's essentially, 20% extra power. That's almost like having an additional hero on your team because you're up 1 level. So if you're up more than that too, it compounds too, right? So it's even crazier. So like a 2-3 level lead is so oppressive, and that's why it feels like that. But yeah,
I'm sure that many listeners out there have played a game where your team is fighting, and then it was a 7-7, right, level, and then you lose a couple of heroes, they die or something, and now it's a 9-7, but then your team's like, oh, we got to fight again anyway because we're gonna win. They don't have another talent tier, but they are 2 levels up and they're about to hit 10, so might want to consider talking them out of that one.
Yeah, it's coming across those players that are just always looking for a fight can be pretty frustrating, because sometimes the right move is to avoid the fights, even if you're ahead in some situations too, and just play the map and make sure you control the macro. But anyways, thanks Mystic for your shakedown this week, and I think this is where we're gonna end the show for the week. So thanks everybody for listening to the Nexus Trolls, a Heroes of the Storm podcast, which we stream live on this Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TrollsGG, every week on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. Roz, thanks for being the guest this week. It's been a pleasure having you on, filling in for LiQuiuD, who's taking care of his sick family. So Roz, where can people find you if they want to follow you on the internet?
You can find me on the internets on Twitter at Rozai Hots, and on the Trolls GG website.
Smeared, so I'm trying to point to it. I was pointing the wrong direction. So, Mystic, how about you? Where's the best place to find you?
You can find me at Mystic Shroud on Twitter.
And LiQuiuD should be returning to the show next week. If you're looking for esports coverage, I know we didn't talk at all about esports. We still have Troll and HGC, which he did do yesterday, so you can catch that the VOD or on your podcast feeds. You can also follow LiQuiuD at LiQuiuDGG. That's LiQiuDGG on Twitter. He's probably the most active of me, Mystic, and him on Twitter as well. But if you're looking for me, you can find me at DazHots. I'd also like to thank all of our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to share and looking for a way to support us, you can do so over at patreon.com/TrollsGG. We're in the process of reworking our Patreon. We're going to be having some new patron rewards coming out shortly, so keep an eye posted for those. You can also subscribe to our show on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you happen to find your podcasts online. You can also visit our website at trolls.gg/TheNexusTrolls to watch this and past shows, along with past video streams, which will also be found on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TrollsGG. For announcements about the show in general, here's the Storm News. You can follow us on Twitter at TheNexusTrolls or at TrollsGG for our general Trolls GG network Twitter feed. And if you want to hang out with us in the Trolls community in-game, you can /join TrollsGG, all one word, in-game, or join our Discord channel. The information for that is over at trolls.gg/discord. We're going to be doing some after-show games today. I definitely will. I'm not sure if Mystic and Roz are going to be joining me. But you guys are, if you stick around afterwards, you head into game and /join Trolls GG. We'll be sure to pick you up there. And finally, if you need to get in touch with us, the best way is by email at TheNexusTrolls@TrollsGG. So Roz and Mystic, thanks again for being on the show. Everybody, thanks for listening. Have a great week.